and welcome to Harris Hall. Welcome to the May 9th edition of the Board of County Commissioners regular meeting. We'll be in session this morning and this afternoon, Ms. Morgraisi. I do believe we're in a Budget Committee meeting.
Correct.
The afternoon, all right. Then moving directly into the agenda, I believe, Ms. Morgraisi, we do have an adjustment to today's agenda. I can cite it. Item 5A2, which was published last week, on the new agenda, item 5A2 has been removed from the agenda. That was order 23050901. Any questions from the board? Okay, so that is the adjustments to the agenda. Any further adjustments, Mr. Morgraisi?
No.
All right, good. Then moving along to emergency business.
We don't have any.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay, no emergency.
To my knowledge.
Then to the board, I see none. Then we'll move directly into public comments. With public comments, you'll be allowed 3 minutes at the mic here in Harris Hall. Please keep an eye on the clock, which will be on this wall over here directly in front of you to my left. It'll indicate the 3 minutes, and it'll be ticking down. You will get an audio signal at about 30 seconds. After your time has elapsed, please summarize quickly and allow the next speaker to talk. We'll first have the speakers in Harris Hall give their testimony. We'll be followed by speakers online. For the online speakers, I'll remind once we get started with the online speakers that we will be allowing you to turn on your camera for use if you so desire. The standard rules, as if you were in Harris Hall, do apply when you're on camera online. So with that, I'll move directly into public comments. First is Judy Smith, who will be followed by Robert Boyce. When your name is called, please step to the mic, identify yourself, and your 3 minutes will begin. Right on. You'll hear the audio signal will come from my right, please.
Good morning, Commissioner Farr, Butch, Lovell, Trigger, and Cigna. Thank you so much. My name is Judy Cormana Smith, and I am the area manager for Home Share Oregon. And where we like to say, we bring communities together. Lane County faces big challenges when it comes to housing, including a lack of affordable housing, housing insecurity for marginalized communities, and as well as providing other housing-related resources. Home Share Oregon provides a way for people of all ages and lifestyles to find a safe, comfortable housemate, or compatible housemate, to build community and prevent homelessness before it starts. We find that our program is especially attractive to senior adults. Home Share Oregon is a 501c3 organization that functions on the premise that owner-occupied homes with available spare bedrooms constitutes underutilized housing. And that inventory is important. We help homeowners reduce mortgage burdens while creating more affordable rental units through our online hybrid roommate matching service. By matching people who have a spare room, who we call a home provider, with someone who's looking for an affordable place to live, a home seeker, we can make a significant difference for our community during the current housing crisis. We have proposed legislation for our state elected leaders to consider. HB 3032, Home Share for Oregon, is a way to incentivize homeowners to consider joining the home share movement. If passed, HB 3032 will absolve state income tax liability on income earned for any homeowner who rents a spare bedroom for $1,000 or less a month for long term. There are over 1.5 million empty spare rooms in our state. And if you view that space as a housing resource, well, that's a lot of empty space. If we can match people with just 2% of those rooms, well, that gives us housing for 30,000 people. That's half the size of Springfield. That's where I live. I think that's significant. And it can also potentially give some financial resilience to the homeowners of that space. At Home Share Oregon, we envision a world in which every person has a clean, safe home, a world where home sharing is normalized as a lifestyle preference and that homelessness is uprooted. I invite the commissioners to support Home Share Oregon, and I just want you to know that my executive director, Tess Fields, would love to have an opportunity to tell you more about what we're trying to do in Lane County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Next is Robert Boyce, who will be followed by Sylvia Barry.
Good morning, Commissioners Farr and Lane County Commissioners. It's good to be here. My name is Robert Boyce. I live in Springfield, Oregon. I first heard about Oregon Home Share Oregon when I met Judy Smith at the Eugene Saturday Market in October of 2021. I later joined in the fall and matched with my current housemate in December of that year, and she moved in on New Year's Day. I have been home sharing for over a year and a half now, and it has been truly wonderful. The extra income allows me to pursue my goal to continue education and improves the quality of my life and gives me a bit of a cushion, which is helpful. My roommate, Margaret, it means much more. When she became widowed, she moved to Springfield to be close to her son, wife, and granddaughter. And she thought her Social Security would allow her to provide enough for an apartment, but she was sorely disappointed in this market, of course. The average price of an apartment was much more than in her entire monthly income. She was couch surfing at her son's 1,000-foot square home and was a stressful situation for everyone. Then she discovered Oregon Home Share. She recently told me that before matching with me, she thought she would have nowhere to live. She enjoys her private bedroom and a private bath. She was able to bring her cat. We share a kitchen and living areas. Recently, the Golden Oaks Retirement Mobile Home Park was bought by an investment corporation. Lot rent has increased by $200 in 3 years. I cannot afford these increases much longer, but in the meantime, I'm both grateful for the Home Share Oregon program, and I strongly recommend that the commissioners support this program. For now, it works for Margaret and myself, and I know it will hope that will help other people in similar circumstances. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce. Next is Sylvia Barry, who will be followed by Craig Colson.
Good morning, Commissioners. First, thank you for your dedication. I live in Lane County District 4. My husband owns a business in District 2. My children attend school in District 5, and my work touches all of your districts. So thank you for your commitment to serving Lane County. My name is Sylvia Barry, and my career has been in the nonprofit sector. Over the past year and a half, I have been working with the Eugene Chamber of Commerce on their homeless initiative, working to educate and engage business leaders and call for cross-sector collaboration to address the growing number of unhoused members of our community. Today, I'm also here to support Home Share Oregon. The concept of home sharing is not new. We're all aware of the benefits. However, despite the general knowledge, it is not the norm in our community, and it has not been well recognized or utilized as an immediate, cost-effective solution to our desperate need for affordable housing. In 2021, Home Share Oregon launched to address this, with a mission of expanding access to affordable housing through home sharing. In just over 2 years, they now have 900 home sharers across Oregon. And so as someone who spends my days thinking about solutions to our housing and homelessness crisis, I'm here for 3 reasons. 1, to make sure you're aware of Home Share Oregon and encourage you to meet with Judy and Tess Fields. 2, to make sure you're aware, if and when you're talking to our state legislators, that they introduced House Bill 3032, which would provide a small tax incentive for homeowners who are willing to rent their spare bedroom. And 3, for you to consider ways we in Lane County might support Home Share Oregon's efforts. With approximately 15,000 homes with a spare bedroom and 1 homeowner, when they sign up, there are 4 home seekers. So the demand clearly exceeds the supply, and I would love for you to consider how we might support Home Share Oregon's efforts locally as a creative solution to address our housing and homelessness issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barry. Next is Craig, and please help me with the last name. I'm having difficulty with the Greg Wilson. There it is. Greg Wilson, who will be followed by Rich Locke. Don't do it from me. Don't do it from me, because you should see mine.
Thank you, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be up here. I come to you as a private citizen. I work for the county, and I work actually in employment services in the STEP program, if you're aware what that program is. And I see on a daily basis the trials and tribulations of people that are housing insecure. So it strikes a real chord in me, those issues that people face. And I got involved in home share because, to me, it seems like it's the single easiest piece of low-hanging fruit that can contribute to solving the housing issue in this county and in fact, all over the state of Oregon. I mean, the housing issues that we face have been decades in the making, and they're not going to be solved overnight, and they're not going to be solved with one single bullet. There's no one single solution that's going to dig us out of this hole. But Home Share Oregon can certainly contribute to that. As you've heard from my predecessors, there's plenty of open space out there for people. Home Share is not something that is well recognized in this country. It used to be. Probably when your parents and my parents were younger, it was called taking in a boarder. And so we have had experience with that in this country. It's kind of fallen by the wayside. This concept is well recognized in parts of Europe, and it's embraced over there. It works. It's the low-hanging fruit, and I encourage all of you to consider supporting it and doing whatever the county can to push this concept forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Next is Rich Locke, who will be followed by Ron Thompson.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name's Rich Locke. I'm a business owner in Eugene. I'm a Lane County resident. And I've been looking at the homeless issues here. I haven't been back to the Commissioners meeting for quite some time because I really didn't want to point out the flaws in it because I was applying for the Human Resources Drug and Homelessness, Health and Welfare, and I got sidebarred by Ms. Traeger there for some reason. I was on the board. So now I'm going to just expound on the shortcomings of the county right now. I've watched the utilization. Some of it has improved, but most of it has not. The programs that the county commissioners endorse are far underutilized. If you would consider that in any one given night, there is, if your numbers are correctly, there's 674 beds or units open. Does that sound like a utilized? There isn't that many to begin with. I would like to say this housing share that's a great program. I've read all about it. I see that it could be very good, and I think we should, you folks should do everything you possibly can to create those spots. There's a lot of people. I go to every city council meeting, and I hear every time I go, homeless people asking for a place to go. I want to be in a place. I don't want to be out of security, and I want to know where that spot is. Show me a map, I will be there. But yet they're all over in front of our businesses, in front of our residences, creating all kinds of mess. Do you realize that there is not an entry point to Eugene or Springfield that doesn't have a pile of garbage along the roadways entering into our beautiful cities? Do you guys not have any idea how much, by allowing the homelessness to go on the way it is right now, that you have all of this garbage and stuff laying around here? Where is, we have a very low bar of our here and now environmental image for our beautiful cities that were once number one, and now we are number one in all the wrong things because of the political aspect of I think we need to do a better job I think we need to get out of the like-mindedness of having all the same like-minded people on these committees. You'll never get change, and the change is not going to happen unless it starts here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Locke. Next is Ron Thompson, and Mr. Thompson is the last person signed up in Harris Hall. Mr. Thompson.
Hello, my name is Ron Thompson, and I'm from Springfield. I understand that homelessness is a major issue. However, we have some other issues as well that need to be addressed, and today I'm going to talk about a technological component. The biggest thing is that if we could establish a large-scale electrolysis production component in Lane County, we could be in a great advantage in terms of supplying new jobs and the electrical resources that will be necessary in the future. As you may be aware, there was an announcement that in 2025, the Salton Lake in California will be utilized to produce 300,000 tons of lithium in order to fuel the electric vehicle and other lithium-ion battery proposal. We'll need to have resources in terms of electricity to supply that for the vehicles that will be made at a rate of around 12 million per year at that rate of production of lithium. And that should be, that supply of lithium should last roughly 200 years at the amount that's available at that location. So for the first time in many years, no other country will have us over a barrel, literally. So with that in mind, in 2008, the amount of electricity that necessary was 500 gigawatts of power. The Pacific Northwest, in terms of excess capacity, produces 1/10 that at 1,000th of that at 450 megawatts in wind power. If we could capture that wind power and translate that to hydrogen production, it would offer us three opportunities. One, if we put a steam plant in place, we could have electrical production that would be recyclable. Two, it would provide hydrogen for other vehicle types that Toyota is focusing on hydrogen-fueled cars. And thirdly, it could produce the capital necessary for green steel, which utilizes hydrogen as opposed to coal or coke to produce the steel. So just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. We'll now go to online testimony, and Ms. Jones will handle the online queue. To the folks who are testifying online, you will have the option to use your camera if you so desire. And once again, the same rules of protocol that exist in Harris Hall exist with the camera. So, Ms. Jones, can you handle the online queue, please?
Thank you, Chair Farr. At this time, if you have registered to give online testimony, please raise your virtual hand. When I call upon you, I will also give you the option to be on camera. I do see two people online, Chava Cronin and Martin Gator. I will begin with Chava Cronin. Chava, I'm going to unmute your microphone and ask you, looks like you're, Chava, would you like to be on camera or would you like to give your testimony off camera?
I'll give it off camera.
Okay. You may begin your public comment.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity to make a public comment. My name is Chava Cronin. I live in the River Road area. I am the Housing Outreach Specialist for Head Start of Lane County. I wrote you all a letter about the urgent need for safe, sanctioned parking places with access to sanitation for families of small children that are experiencing houselessness. I received replies from Commissioner Traeger, Booch, Lovell, and Kate Budd, and I look forward. I appreciate the responses, and I very much look forward to continuing the conversation about this urgent need and learning what can be done. I'm also here to say thank you to some hardworking county employees in the rent assistance and diversion programs, specifically Justine Hopper, Noel Lamore, and James Ewell, to whom I've reached out for assistance for families that I'm working with in order to keep them housed or to remove barriers to housing. And I'd like to read 2 letters at this time from 2 parents who did receive this vital assistance. The first one is Tanera. My name is Tanera, and I'm originally from Maryland. I aged out of the foster care system at 21, relocated to Oregon in 2014 to provide a better upbringing for my daughter. Over the last few years, I managed to provide for my family. Most recently, I gave birth to my 3rd child with some medical complications. I'm also a domestic violence survivor. I currently hold a Section 8 voucher, but there's no assistance when a recipient faces a hardship. And with no family or support here in Oregon, I was in crisis, possibly facing eviction and utility shutoff. I am so thankful for being able to utilize community resources like Head Start of Lane County. It was helpful in connecting me to funding through Lane County diversion program to support me in my time of need. This has given me a huge sense of relief to be able to maintain stability for my children. The other letter is from Michelle. I have applied for so many rentals and was denied due to my credit score and what I owed. This means I have been living in my truck with my 3 children, one of whom has severe disabilities. We are still waiting to get housed. I do have a Section 8 voucher, but it is very difficult to find housing with the value of the Section 8 voucher. I'm so grateful for the help of the diversion funds, and it gives me hope. It really gives me a lot of hope for my future. I was about to give up on ever being able to pay off my debt. Now I'm thinking that in the future I could buy a home. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your public comment. Our next speaker will be Martin Gator. Martin, I'm going to unmute your microphone and then ask you if you would like to be on camera. Martin, I show yourself muted.
Yes, I'd like my 3 minutes of fame.
Okay, you would like camera. One moment. You'll see something come up on your device that will be promoting you to panelist, and then you'll need to press that button and turn your camera on. Okay, Martin, I see you, and you need to unmute your cam. There you go. And your microphone. There you go. You may begin your public comment.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Martin Gator. I thought I would give you a little background on who I am. Last year, the governor appointed me to the Oregon Broadband Advisory Council. I am a vice chair of the Strategic Planning Committee of LTD. I'm on the Economic Development Committee of the Springfield Chamber. I'm on the steering committee for Eugene Leadership Springfield. I also on many different community activities. What I'm titling this is Being Prepared for the Unpreparable. So a little bit of my past, about I'd say maybe 2008, 9, or whatever the case may be. I was actually divorced, laid off from a job when I was living in Utah. However, at that time, I was able to continue work, find a job, and continue my lifestyle. Why that's pertinent to today is because this same thing happened to me last October, November. Did not plan this at all. My life turned upside down. I lost my business. I lost every bit of finance that I had and found myself homeless. Now, why that is important to be able to find the resources that are available to people that are in my situation. I was employable. I had my business. I had everything going on. However, the main reason why I started my own business is because Oregon has been an employment minefield for an African-American smart man. I'm just going to say how it is. The at-will nature of this state has made it very, very difficult for people of color, women, diversity to advance within the context of the state. It's just impossible because once we get in, we're shuffled out as quickly as possible. What I've done is I've done rehab, book rehab. I'm now a peer support specialist. I'm now a community health worker. What I'm finding now is the same problem breaking in as I did in the private sector. Why this is important is because literally I have support from the VA. I met HomeShare at the same time I got help from the VA. Fantastic. They're a great program. Luckily, I had the VA. Here's my dilemma. The VA program is time sensitive and I have to be employed at some point in time. If that benefit runs out, I don't know what's going to happen to me. My plan is to start school in the fall and have a job. If that all works out, fantastic. If not, we've got people across this whole stinking state that have rooms available. I actually went out on a couple of interviews to find out if these people were compatible. Some of them would have worked out, but as I said, the VA stepped in and helped me out. It would make absolutely no sense to pass up this opportunity to give people in my situation a chance to plan for the unplannable, because I did not plan to have 2 divorces going into my 60s. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your public comment. Chair Farr, at this time, I have no other individuals signed up for public comment, so I'll return the meeting to you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones, for handling the online queue. I'll turn to Harris Hall. Does anyone else in Harris Hall wish to provide testimony to the Board of County Commissioners? I see none, then I'll close the public comment period. And I will open the Commissioner's response period, which is a response to public comments and/or other issues and remonstrance. And before Vice Chair Trieger beats me to this one, Mr. Mokrowski, I'll have you all turn around and look at the farmers market is operating outdoors right now on former Lane County property in conjunction with the City of Eugene and Lane County. So there, got that out of the way. So to the board for comments, Commissioner Seneca.
Well, thank you guys for coming. That is very eye-opening. A couple of those numbers, and Rich Locke, you hit on a number too. There's 674 beds open every night. We can do better. What's that? Substantial, I agree. And the fact that this HomeShare could bed 30,000 people, I mean, half of Springfield, that's huge. This is something we need to be in support of, and I will be talking with the state reps in my district, absolutely. And it sounds like we have a coffee date coming, Judy, so I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Seneca. Commissioner Lovall, followed by Commissioner Buck.
Yeah, thank you. You guys, thank you for coming and doing public testimony. This excites me because it's the best way that citizens can bring us what we need to know. We work for you, remember? And I appreciate that. So I just thank you for having the boldness and the tenacity and the information to come and share with us. Rich, I'm a big fan. I love what you're doing. Keep doing that in the community. You're so involved and I think opinionated and fair, and I love that about you. So keep up the good work. Keep us responsible for what we need to be doing. Judy, I'm a big fan of your program as well. I mean, obviously this reached all over the state. And I guess the question I want to pose to maybe Mr. Mokrowski and the staff is, what would it take or what would be needed for us as a county commission to move the needle on your behalf? Because apparently if we have 674 beds available per night, we're not moving that needle as much as we should. So is there an area of investment that we can make for a modest amount that would actually move your needle to a significant degree? I'm all in support of that. So that's a question I ask. The last thing I want to do, I just want to do a shout out to, as you know, I'm on the Travel Lane County Board, and Travel Lane County is doing some significant things I just want to put into public record and to announce. They're purposely endorsing the county's public safety levy renewal, which I encourage everyone in the public to support. The election is on May 16th. It keeps our jail beds open and it doesn't increase any of our taxes. And without a great public safety system, our town will drop into a very perilous situation that we had in the early 2000s. Also, Travel Lane County is taking care to maximize earnings on its bank balances. I have to sheepishly admit, in their meetings, there are so many numbers that fly by. They're so fiscally responsible. It just, it makes me chuckle, but they're doing some very good things, moving money around and being very fiscally responsible with the county, and I applaud them for that. And lastly, they were recognized with the Governor's Tourism Award for the work on the World Athletics Championship in 2022, and that event has already won several national awards and continues to grow our community as an international sports destination. So just kudos to them for doing a great job. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Lovell. Commissioner Buck?
Thank you, Chair. Judy, we've had a chance to speak, and I'm a huge fan ever since I've been sharing about home share with practically anybody who wants to talk about housing, since it's one of my favorite subjects. It's not a novel idea, but it is more formalized in a system like home share. You know, I rented out a room in my house when I was younger and needed to help pay the bills. You know, it's a different form of that for a different population sector that might need more assistance than your average everyday homeowner or property manager who does that on a daily basis. And I would be happy to find additional avenues and ways to support your association and grow it, because I think it really truly is a way where we can house people in need and kind of just lessen that burden for folks. Martin, if you're still on, it's great to see you again. I appreciate everything that you shared and everybody who came today to speak. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts, your lives with us, basically. It's not easy, and it takes courage, and I appreciate it deeply. And I'm happy to continue to have these conversations with folks privately if they so choose. And then lastly, but not least, I wanted to share a very exciting announcement with the board and the public. I'm sure a press release will be coming here later today. But yesterday, we received notice that the last holiday farm fire survivor that has been sheltered has transitioned to permanent housing. Huge landmark. That doesn't mean a lot of other people are struggling with other transition needs, and people are still trying to build homes upriver. Many people moved in with family, but those that we were sheltering have now fully transitioned out into permanent housing. Very exciting. So you will probably see a follow-up with a press release in the near future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Buck. Vice Chair Trigger.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for, pardon me. Thank you for coming out to provide public comment or just to be present for our meetings. To Judy, thank you for coming and bringing some friends. You and I first met and started talking about home share when your program was featured on the City Club last year. So we've had several opportunities to chat. And I think one of the most important things we can do as commissioners is encourage folks and help them understand our process to provide this very kind of platform. Because not only were you here speaking in front of the five of us and the few folks in the room here, but of course our meetings are broadcast and repeated out on Metro Television. So you and the folks that you organized to come talk about this important program did a great job of utilizing this platform to help get the word out, because from all of our conversations, one of the most important things you need is just for more people to know about your program so that they can make use of it and share about it with their network. So thank you for doing that, and it's great to be able to provide that opportunity to you. Mr. Locke, I just want to encourage you, if you'd like to reach out for clarification. My concerns were strictly of process and had nothing to do with any individual applicant to any of our committees. And then finally, later, I'm going to think about how I might perhaps offer a request for a future agenda item, or maybe to roll into our next update on housing and homelessness, that our staff give some deeper dive and clarification around bed capacity and sort of churn and availability, because I think there's a lot, it's a very complex system, and by nature of what our nonprofit partners and our own programs provide. People cycle in and out, and at any given moment, it might seem as if there's a greater degree of underutilization than there actually is. Maybe that's not the case. I think it would be great for us to have a little more information and conversation, and again, because this is streamed out to a much wider audience and repeatedly than just what happens in this moment on a Tuesday morning, that could be a real service to the community. Because for me, the way I think of it as someone who worked in restaurant industry for nearly 12 years, depending what time or what day of the week you walk into a restaurant, it might be full, it might be empty, there might be a few tables taken, but that doesn't give you, that's a snapshot, any given moment, doesn't necessarily give you a full sense of the flow and the utilization. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about that as an assignment for the next time we have our housing update, so we can all understand that a little bit better and help understand if there are issues that we could be addressing, either from a policy perspective or programmatically, to make better utilization of the scarce resource we have for our unhoused neighbors. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Trigger. I've got a couple of things really quickly. I already mentioned the farmers market. Once again, that is it was formed in cooperation by Lane County and the City of Eugene on former Lane County property, and it operates. At some point, it'll be operating year-round on a regular basis. The building you see over there is also a multi-climate building, climate-controlled building. So, Mr. Boyce, hang on just 1 second. I'm going to mention your name. I'd like to say that it's not often we get people from Bethel providing testimony. Today we had 2 people either with businesses in Bethel or who actually live in Bethel providing testimony. Thank you for that. I'll mention you, Rich Luck, you have a business out on Ocean and Pacific in Bethel in West Eugene. And I wanted to mention something that happened that I've witnessed out there. You had what was a really untenable and uncontrolled housing situation in your neighborhood. You helped facilitate what is now a fairly well-controlled camp, very well organized with internal governance, so to speak. And Ms. Kate Budd, who's here with me today, she and I toured that facility, and if we can mirror that kind of a facility in other places, we'll help to solve some of the issues, but will not crack the entire nut. Second is Ms. Barry. Now, you weren't the only one from HomeShare who spoke today, but you're from Bethel, so I'm going to mention your name out loud. And Judy Smith and Robert Boyce, Mr. Boyce, who is actually providing HomeShare rooms. That is a bold step, but not so bold, because it's an additional income, as he mentioned, and really the renter is compatible in his situation. I'd like to point out that Dr. Betty Taylor spent a lot of years on the Eugene City Council. She's retired now. For years and years and years, she was always harping about single-room occupancy. Single-room occupancy, single-room occupancy. Not just HomeShare, but other ways to have single rooms where people can live in a comfortable and safe environment. It's a huge issue. We're looking at House Bill 2032. I've been keeping an eye on it. It went through the Housing and Homelessness Committee, went through with a due pass, but is in what is now called his Revenue Expenditure Committee, which is actually, sad to say, kind of a dead end in the legislature. I'm afraid that 3032 is probably not going to move forward this session. We can advocate for it as much as possible, but as the session draws to a close, there are a couple of committees that really continue to work bills. That usually isn't one of them, but let's keep an eye on it. Finally, I'd like to mention very quickly that Director Gray is with us today. And Director Gray has just taken a position on the Oregon Association of Oregon Counties Local Government Advisory Commission, which is advisory to OHA. That committee meets in Salem monthly, meets in the offices of OHA, and all of the directors are present at those meetings. Ms. Gray, you were at your first meeting 2 weeks ago, a week ago, last Friday, I believe is when it was, and by all reports, you're going to be a tremendous contributor to the LGAC committee. Thank you for being there, and thank you for doing that. Anything further from the Board of Commissioners? Then we'll move down the agenda. We have before us a consent calendar. Now, the consent calendar has a number of items on it, all of which are going to be passed by a single motion. The board has been advised of all of the items that are on the consent calendar. We've reviewed them, and you can do the same by clicking on View Material. One of the items from the consent calendar has been removed from that consent calendar, which was the 5A2 is no longer on the consent calendar. It's passed by a single motion. If anything needed to be pulled by any commissioner or anyone else, it would have been pulled for separate discussion. Do I have a motion? Vice Chair Trieger.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move approval of the consent calendar for Tuesday, May 9th, 2023, with the aforementioned item removed.
Second?
Moved by Vice Chair Trieger and seconded by Commissioner Laval. Discussion to the motion. I am seeing none. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. And then give the room a moment to clear, although nobody's leaving, so hang on.
Riveting.
I love, in fact, they're all coming in. So next item on our agenda, Mr. Mokrahysky, is a county council announcements. And I'll mention that Ms. Pettigrew, Ms. Erin Pettigrew, is our county council. You report directly to the Board of County Commissioners, so I don't feel uncomfortable introducing you myself.
Well, thank you, Chair. Good morning, Vice Chair and Commissioners. It's nice to see you today. Just a brief update on a couple of our public records activities for this month of May. First, this Thursday, we'll be doing a demonstration to any Lane County employee or elected interested in the Next Request software that we are exploring as a possible next step for modernizing our public records responses, and you are welcome to attend. And then on Monday, the 22nd, we will be sending out an announcement regarding a in-person as well as remote hybrid option training from the Office of the Public Records Advocate to be hosted by the Office of Legal Counsel. It'll be 2 hours, I promise cookies, and I think it will be interesting, even though it may not be everyone's favorite subject, but it'll be an opportunity to learn more about our sunshine laws here in Oregon, as well as Lane County's policies. And finally, we are working on 3 more hires for our office, 2 attorneys and an administrative support supervisor position, which is a new position in our office to provide coordination and support for all of the legal professional work that we do. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pettigrew. Any questions or comments for Ms. Pettigrew from the Board of Commissioners? I'm seeing none. Thank you very much. Good news on 3 new hires moving forward directly. Mr. Mokrahysky, next then we have Health and Human Services. Item 7A is Order 23050903. And by the way, I'll mention that we do have a 10 a.m. time certain. This item is scheduled for approximately 10 minutes, so there's a good likelihood that we will not be late for our 10 a.m. time certain for those of you in the back who are here for that. So we're on Order 23050903 in the matter of declaring a local emergency due to homelessness and delegating authority to the county administrator to execute contracts and distribute funds. Mr. Mokrahysky, I'm going to ask if you would introduce your panel, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll invite Kate Budd, Patience. Kate Budd is our interim Human Services Division Manager. Eve Gray, of course, our Director of Health and Human Services. And then Patience, are you joining? All right. So I'll just do a brief introduction here of this item. In part, we've done emergency declarations in the past. We've done them for wildfires. We've done them after other natural disasters, snowstorms or ice storms, and we've done them most notably and for the longest period of time during the COVID pandemic. And I want to just set the context for the board's action today because there's sometimes misunderstanding in the public about when you declare an emergency, what that actually means. This declaration of emergency, as with most declarations that the board has issued in the specific instances that I mentioned, authorizes the county administrator to execute contracts. So typically will be in the case of natural disasters, or the pandemic, we're receiving funds from state or federal government to respond to an emergency. And so those funds are available, but in terms of executing the contracts to actually go do the work, because we want to do that expeditiously and respond to the emergency and be able to be as nimble as possible, the board has historically delegated authority to the county administrator to do that. So that's really the primary action that we're requesting from the board here today, is to delegate authority to the administrator to execute contracts on behalf of the county, utilizing the resources that have been now approved by the governor for implementing the governor's executive order. Ms. Budd, who put together, I think we've talked about this with the board, and of course you know that Lane County was the first county, the first community to submit its all-in action plan. It was well received by the state, and the governor herself was very complimentary of the work that Ms. Budd and our team in Lane County did to pull together a really clear, specific, detailed plan. So Ms. Budd and our team here can respond to additional questions, but I just want to set the context for what we're doing when we declare an emergency. It's really about creating the authorities necessary to be expeditious in our response to meeting the needs of that emergency. Do you have anything you want to say?
Well said, Administrator.
Okay. Kate, you want to take it from here?
Sure, glad to. I just want to provide a very quick update regarding where we are today. As the administrator shared, the grant has been fully executed between Oregon Housing and Community Services and Lane County, which provides us with the opportunity to request reimbursement as costs are accrued related to the all-in efforts. And because this emergency declaration is only for a one-year period, it ends January 10th of 2024. And so it means that the soonest we can get the contracts executed with our partners and programs can begin, the more effective we will be at meeting the identified outcomes of the Oregon Housing and Community Services Agreement. Specifically, 740 households being stabilized in housing or moving from a doubled up or couch surfing situation to permanent housing, creating 230 new emergency shelter beds in the community that meet quality emergency shelter definition identified through the state, and then 247 individuals being rehoused from an unsheltered housing situation into permanent housing. And so that is very much our laser focus as we move forward, and we want to give our provider partners the longest period of time we can in order for them to get these programs up and running and be successful in meeting these outcomes.
Thank you, Ms. Budd and Director Gray. Anything else from the panel? You got to say something.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. Patrick Kerr with the public, our program team in our H&HS administrators staff over there. What this does allows us to do is execute the documents to achieve the MAC groups, the approved MAC groups outcomes that we have in the community plan. Allows us to implement those. And as Kate mentioned, we do have our contracts out there. We have our RFP out there right now for the all-in. When we receive that information, we want to be able to turn around quickly so we can expedite these contracts so we can spend that funding. We have just a little over 6 months to spend almost $16 million. So that's a big ask for our community out there. And so this allows us to expedite that as much as possible.
It's a remarkably tight time frame, isn't it? And I mean, we have all boots on the ground right now, and patients, you're sitting in the background just smiling. Really, the teamwork that's gone into this that gave us the really a head start on just about any other region or county in Oregon, according to the governor. I'm not saying that myself. I'm saying that according to the governor. It's really got us ahead of the curve. And I'm hoping and expecting that through this action and through the work that we're continuing to do, that will not just take care of the immediate deadline, but some of the things that we put in place will really last and really provide some permanent structure and some sustainable structure. So I'll look to the board for any questions or comments. I am seeing none. This is a big step, so I'll look to Vice Chair Trieger for a motion.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, and I would move approval of Order 23-05-09-03 in the matter of declaring a local emergency as a result of Emergency Order 23-02, Governor Kotek's state of emergency due to homelessness.
I'll second.
Moved by Vice Chair Trieger and seconded by Commissioner Buck. Discussion to the motion. I just have one more thing to say, and that is...
Chair Farr?
Yes, please, Diana.
Sorry, this is Diana. We did change the title on that order, so we will need a different motion from Vice Chair Trieger, if possible.
I was looking at my print and not my online, so making sure I didn't have a cached version. There we go. Thank you. Rescinding that order, that motion, and instead inserting, requesting approval of Order 23-05-09-03 in the matter of declaring a local emergency due to homelessness and delegating authority to the county administrator to execute contracts and distribute funds.
Second that, too.
Moved by Vice Chair Trieger and seconded by Commissioner Buck, the revised motion. And discussion to the motion. See, none, I just have very, very quickly, Director Gray, I mentioned earlier that you're on the LGAC committee. We are, as you know, I chair that committee, and we're discussing the agenda for the coming meeting, for this month's meeting. And we anticipate that Faribault Paskaresht, James Bawden, and Andrea Bell will all be at that meeting, which is held in the OHA offices. Andrea Bell is the Director of Oregon Housing Community Services. So you will have a direct line to the direct services. They'll be looking at Lane County to hear what we're doing, as well as hoping that we can help inform some of the other regions and some of the other areas how they can make things work, particularly the smaller counties who feel it's a little bit overwhelming with a small staff, small resources. A part of our work is to make sure that they don't feel too badly overwhelmed by this and they realize that they can address it on their scale. So thank you for that. Further discussion? I am seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the ball's in your court, Mr. Morkanaisky. We do have a 10 a.m. time certain, which is about 10 minutes away. I see most of our presenters are organized or amassed here, but let's move down the agenda. Mr. Morkanaisky, is there anything that you may wish to cover?
Yeah, you know, Ms. Dawson is going to be with us again this morning, back by popular demand. It's been confirmed. I have been replaced. I have been replaced as your elections updater. I know everyone is happy about that. But she's not here yet. She was going to be here at about 20 after or 10. So, let's see. We don't have our presenters. You could recess until 10 o'clock.
I believe that Vice Chair Trieger has an item she'd like to cover very quickly.
I have just a note on the agenda. I'm sorry I didn't notice this before with all the cutting and pasting, I think, and because it's budget and we're a little off our usual. We don't have a placeholder on the agenda for commissioner announcements or future assignment requests and then review of assignments. So I could talk slower to fill more of this time. But really what I'm suggesting is that we could either roll right to that if we're ready to, or just ensuring that we insert that before we adjourn after item 10 on other business.
Well, we can cover this a little bit. I believe our entire panel is assembled. However, the public is anticipating a 10 a.m. time certain, so I'm not going to move in ahead of the time certain. So we do have a few minutes that we could recess, or we could cover commissioner business or other items from commissioners. We can work on that for a few minutes.
We might still want to revisit it just in case something comes up in the remaining items, but just since we're trying to fill a few minutes, unless you wanted to recess for a few minutes, Chair.
Let's forge forward. Go ahead, Vice Chair Trieger.
So I guess I would like to ask, and it looks like Eve left, but maybe our administrator could advise a little bit, as I mentioned earlier. Is it its own standalone assignment, or is it simply working with staff to insert into the next Housing and Homelessness Programs update a little more of a deep dive and explanation of bed capacity, what we're seeing, particularly now post the most intense parts of COVID, with utilization of beds, both programs that we run or that we contract to have run, and more broadly in the community. Is that a standalone assignment in your mind, or is that just something to
response
ask?
to some of the comments this morning.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's, I would suggest that you do that that we do respond to that request as part of the regular update.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can we consider that done? So you don't need that as its own assignment? That's just
No, I actually think it was great that we had the folks in the room that, between Ms. Gray and Ms. Budd, that will be giving that presentation. I can check on when the next one is, but I'll make sure that we provide that information at the next update.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and I guess what I was looking for too is not just a sort of chart with the numbers, but a little bit, a chance to have a discussion, because I know that's a topic that comes up quite a bit, of how and why those numbers ebb and flow the way they do, what kind of patterns we see, or why we understand that to be the case, that on some nights, not all the beds are full. Thank you.
I presume that's an interest of the majority of the board.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We still have a few minutes. Anything further?
Chair, could I add some comments to that, Vice Chair? I think also in that answer that we get from Kate Budd and Eve Gray, I'd also like to put this in light of the Boise model that we're always chasing too, about how we're supposed to supply bed spaces, or we can't enforce trespassing and illegal camping. I think if we're going to look at how much bed space we're underutilizing or not utilizing, I think that also needs to be married with the public safety system of how we can better enforce our illegal camping situations, knowing that some people are just refusing to use the facilities and the compassion in the facilities that we're offering. And so I think, the public safety system needs to be tied with that proposal and information that we get back.
That would be a different assignment, I believe, because you're going to want to, as you indicated, you're going to want to hear from public safety officials and probably our facilities and public works related staff that sometimes engage in those illegal camping on county property issues. So I would just say, I don't want you to expect that Ms. Budd is going to provide that information, because she won't be able to do that.
So it sounds as though that may be a larger, broader assignment, Commissioner. We can address that as a different assignment when we
We
get
should,
to that
yes,
point
I
of the
believe we
agenda.
should.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Monogasky. Further comments from the board? We have a couple more minutes.
I've got one more, Chair, if you have
Go ahead,
time.
Commissioner Laval.
Yeah, I'd like to put out I think part of the, Vice Chair said that we're doing the budget thing, and I think one of the comments that was made in the meetings the other day that kind of concerned me was the lack of funds that the Stabilization Center is getting from our budget that we're weaning down this time. And I think I would like to get some head nods from the county commissioners, because obviously this Mental Health Stabilization Center is very dear to my heart. My family has suffered a loss with this, and I don't want any of our citizens in Lane County to suffer what we have needlessly. And I think if we put off the Stabilization Center more than a few years, then I think we're going to be in a dire strait. So I would just like to propose, if we could, to ask the board if they have a timeline of which they want to get some sort of lesser or modular treatment facility online that could be a pilot program to the Stabilization Center, so we can at least move the needle before the Stabilization Center has a chance to take root, which in some circles has been predicted 5 to 7 years out. And if we look at that particular timeline, 5 to 7 years out, there's going to be over 400 of our people that are going to die because of their mental health conditions by suicide or by neglect. And that's just inexcusable in my eyes. So I would like to get a head nod from the county commissioners to see if we could get some sort of timeline on the collectivity of the 5 of us, what we want to put something online and when, and how we want to attack that.
Commissioner Lovell, I fear that that's going to take a little bit more discussion than we have to get that head nod or declining of it than we have between now and 10. So let's bring that back up, and I will mention to the board that I have added a sub-item to item 8B, which is announcements. It's just a generally said announcements. It's your announcements, but we'll also include commissioner items and/or announcements and agenda team requests under your announcements. That'll be after the morning agenda, Ms. Monogasky, before we go into executive session. So if that works for everybody.
Great.
Vice Chair Trieger?
Thank you. Can I ask for clarification? Commissioner Lovell, it seemed you brought up 2 separate topics. So the one around the assignment, and we can review it later, just for the sake of clarity, did we receive a majority of head nods for the assignment around the intersection of law enforcement, public works, homelessness, shelter beds? That was one assignment that did receive head nods, is that right? Just making sure procedurally, or no? I'm just...
I don't believe we look for head nods.
We're going to wait and do that.
Talking about, yeah.
That'll come up afterwards.
Wait and do that later. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, which leads us directly into just exactly enough time, Mr. Stouter, for you to bring your panel forward. Now, while you're coming forward, I'll mention this. We are moving forward with item 8A, which is Order 23050904, in the matter of ratifying the fiscal year 2023 Regional Wastewater Program budget and capital improvement programs as approved by the Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission. And I'm Mr. Stouter. I'll introduce you. This is Matt Stouter, who's the director of MWMC. And I'll point out what I am wearing here, my alternate ID for this moment in time. I'm also a member of the Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission, have served there for, golly, close to 6 years now, I think. Yeah. Seems like yesterday that I started. But really, the work you do is broad, deep, broad and touches everybody in the county. So, Mr. Stouter, I'll turn it over to you to please introduce your panel.
All right, welcome. And I did notice your name pin. My eyes aren't as good as they used to. I thought that's what that was, but that was exciting. So yeah, I'm Matt Stouter, Executive Officer with the MWMC. It's our pleasure to be here today with you. With me is Michelle Miranda, Wastewater Division Director, and James McClendon, also with the City of Eugene. And on my left is Catherine Bishop from the City of Springfield. So our pleasure to be here. I'm here to discuss the fiscal year 23-24 Regional Wastewater Program budget with Lane County and ask that the board consider ratification of our budget. And I have a note here to acknowledge Commissioner Farr, but he mentioned that earlier, but
I
yes,
acknowledge
he
myself, didn't
has served on our board for a number of years. Okay. Just quickly, what we're going to go over today is a little bit about the history. I know there's a couple of new to us folks on the commission since we were here last year. So we'll go over the history of the MWMC and a little bit about our partnership, briefly discuss our regional facilities, and then get into our regional budgets and work plans. So we show this slide every year, but I think it's important for context. And so the picture on the right is the Cuyahoga River in Ohio burning from a spark from a railroad car. That happened. It burned more than once. It burned several times. Basically, the waters in the country were fairly polluted prior to the 1970s. And so in response to that, Congress passed the Clean Water Act, the biggest piece of environmental legislation that's ever been passed in this country. And it was like I said, it was implemented in 1972. As part of that, EPA program money through the Construction Grants Program for communities that would regionalize and serve wastewater, provide wastewater service on a regional centralized basis. They provided money for folks to construct. And Eugene and Springfield and Lane County at the time thought that that sounded like a good idea. They needed to meet these new requirements that were coming into place as a result of the Clean Water Act, and in 1977 formed the MWMC through an intergovernmental agreement, or actually an intergovernmental entity under ORS 190. Construction began, and about 75% of the construction was paid for with that federal money. And in 1984, our treatment plant came online, and we opened our biosolids facility in 1989, and then adopted a facilities plan that was a 20-year plan that guided us through a lot of construction over the last 20 years. The plant capacity enhancements there, we worked on that. We're still working on that. That should be ongoing. It's going to be going on past 2021 and into the next 20 years. We're working on a new facilities plan right now. We did receive a new permit, a new MPDES permit, which is what we're governed under through EPA and DEQ. We received that in November. So that lower picture there just shows one of the major trunk lines being constructed back in the early 80s. This is a picture of our board. We have a 7-member commission. Commissioner Farr is on there. We have 3 electeds and 4 community representatives. Commissioner Inge from Lane County is our current president. And then Councilor Ye and Councilor Pictionary, you may know through your work with Springfield and Eugene. Our service area is depicted there. We serve about 250,000 people. It includes the urban growth boundaries of Eugene and Springfield, and then unincorporated areas in Santa Clara. Additionally, we receive septage and other hauled mobile waste from outside the service area, from as far away as Douglas County and even beyond. Just to note, through the partnership, Springfield does the administration related to MWMC, so we provide the MPDES permit compliance and oversight. We provide the project delivery, the capital planning and budget, and then work with the commission in our education and outreach. And Eugene does all the operations and maintenance associated with all of our assets and infrastructure. And then MWMC does not have any staff. We contract directly with the 2 cities for staffing services. All right.
So I'll talk about the operations part of things. So that's our wastewater treatment plant. It's located off of River Avenue in North Eugene. We're an advanced secondary treatment facility with 16 years of consecutive compliance with our DEQ permit. The plant removes solids, oxygen demand, ammonia, and it provides disinfection before we discharge into the Willamette River. And we're an award-winning facility with most recent awards to include the NACWA Platinum Peak Performance Award, also the 2022 Excellence in Resource Recovery Award, 2022 Operator of the Year Award, and also the 2022 National Environmental Achievement Award. Lots of awards we've had over the years. Next slide. So that's our biosolids facility. This provides additional treatment for the solid material, and we also process it so it's suitable for use as a soil amendment and fertilizer. It's applied to local grass seed farms and also the BioCycle farm, our poplar trees. Next slide. And there's a picture of our BioCycle farm. So the high nitrogen uptake of the trees allows for higher application rates of the biosolids. So there's lower hauling and application costs. And it also provides the flexibility of we can apply the biosolids to our farm or the local grass seed farms. It provides a variety of wood products, and right now you'll find wood from our last harvest at Bring Recycling. There's live edge and dimensional wood for sale right now at Bring, so it's pretty cool. And I think, yep, now on to.
And then on to the budget approval process. We started in April 14th with the budget being adopted by MWMC. On May 1st, we ratified by City of Springfield. And then on May 8th, we ratified the budget with the City of Eugene. So we're here today on May 9th for the ratification by Lane County. Our recommendation is approval of board order ratifying the budget for fiscal year 23-24. And then we'll return back to the MWMC for final adoption.
So our work is driven by the key outcomes you see here. In addition to, these are in alignment with our strategic plan that was passed by the commission. Basically, every year we have a number of performance indicators that are associated with these key outcomes that are listed in the budget. We review those with the commission over the course of a couple meetings, and they give us feedback, and we try to make those indicators tied directly to the key outcomes so that they're meaningful and really guide our work.
And in terms of the adopted rate change and looking back, you'll see that during the pandemic in 2021, we held our rates flat. We held the rates flat. And then as we move forward to 23-24, currently we have a 4.5% rate change effective July 1. That would result in $1.30 for a single-family residential. But again, it depends on the usage. So. Okay. And this reflects the combined Springfield and Eugene budget. And you can see that on the fiscal year 23-24, our budget is $23.9 million. We did increase the staffing by 2.37 FTE, or 2.4%. And the change in our budget was 7.1% compared to the prior year. And this is the combined Eugene and Springfield in terms of our budget. It's $23.9 million. And next.
So the capital budget is really where we're seeing a lot of our price increases with, due to inflation and other factors, as well as our operations and maintenance budget. The slides that Catherine just showed are reflecting of that. You'll note here, this year, our projects are very large projects. They span multiple years, and so we program all the dollars for the year that the contracts are let, and then they are constructed over a period of years, and so these dollars will roll forward. So you see the first year looks very large, and then there's quite a bit less money in years 25, 26, 26, 27, and that's typical for our capital budget. Our total capital budget this year is approximately $67 million. Our 5-year CIP is about $129 million. Most of the money is in plant performance improvement projects, and we'll talk a little bit about those projects here in the next few slides. But I would note that as our facility ages, it's over 40 years old now. We're starting to put more money and having to program more money into asset management and equipment replacement. So one of our largest capital projects this year is a total system replacement of our switchgear at the plant. A few completed projects. We talked last year about the RNG upgrades facilities project. We did complete that, and the reason we noted it here is that this project we did in partnership with Northwest Natural. We produce methane gas as part of our anaerobic digestion process at the plant. We use that to power about about 50 to 60% of the plant was powered with that gas, and the remaining gas was flared into the atmosphere. And so our commission had a goal of eliminating that flare and utilizing all of our gas, one for the environmental benefit and two for the financial benefit. So we did that. We partnered with Northwest Natural. We sell that gas directly to them. The environmental attributes are sold as well. And it's been about a year now, and I think it's around $1.5 million that we generated in revenue this past year. We anticipate that to continue, and after about 7 to 8, 9 years, we'll have that project paid off, and we'll have that steady source of revenue to help us on our way. The last project here, we completed a study of our aeration basin system improvements to optimize energy efficiency for that system in our secondary treatment process. Michelle mentioned the BioCycle Farm. We have a contract that we've let for poplar harvest management services. That was harvested last year. It's being replanted now, and this is a partnership opportunity for us. It's being planted in partnership with Northwest Youth Corps, and the planting is going as we speak, and it's almost complete. We do harvest these. We have 3 management units, and we harvest them on a 12-year rotation. And then the end products go to the lumber for bring recycling to sell. We have Springfield City Hall is going to be using some of that in their new council chambers. We have it in the library meeting room at City Hall as well. So those types of uses. I just mentioned earlier the facilities plan. The new permit's going to be driving a new facilities plan for us. It's going to be our 20-year plan moving forward to help us plan from a regulatory context and a population projection context of what we need to be planning for as far as our capital projects.
And Matt had mentioned the switchgear project. So that's just a picture of the switchgear. It's the main electrical switchgear for the wastewater treatment plant. In addition, one of our larger pump stations that's on Willa Kinsey, and it's really reached the end of its service life and needs to be replaced. So it's a bigger capital project this year. But the purpose of the equipment is to bring in the utility power and then reduce it so that we can use it to power all the other areas of the plant.
I think Commissioner Farr knows this, but that project has got the equipment has a long lead time and is starting to fail. We're seeing arcing at the plant. We're having power failures. We can't afford to have power failures in our business. We do have backup generators, but given that it's a 2 to 3 year lead time to get all that equipment and get it constructed, we needed to move forward earlier than anticipated. So the last 2 projects here, we went from the study to actually improvements of the aeration basin. So we just discussed that. And then our administration and operations building, which houses our operations console, we're going to be upgrading that facility. That building's 40+ years old, and the systems are antiquated in there and need to be updated. So that project was listed as our highest priority project out of our disaster resiliency and mitigation plan that was performed as a result of looking at Cascadia subduction zone quake and other natural disasters. So with that, we are happy to answer any questions you might have about the budget or the presentation, and we request that you approve the board order ratifying our fiscal year 23-24 budget.
Thank you for the great presentation, Mr. Stouter. This doesn't even come close to scratching the surface of the fascinating work that you do. Quick question for you. How long have you been with MWMC?
I've been with MWMC for 10 years, in the city about 20.
Right on. Okay. And I'll mention that MWMC is, the commission is represented by elected officials from Lane County, Eugene, and Springfield. Lane County is involved because many residents live inside urban growth boundaries but outside of city limits, for instance. And significantly, we send 10 to 12 trucks of nasty stuff every single day, big, huge 40-foot tankers of nasty stuff from Short Mountain to Glenwood, where it's introduced into the system. A small pipeline, which we're working on, and sometime in the future that will be in place. It should have been there in the late 1990s, but sometime we'll have that in place and get all of those trucks off the highway. So look forward to that. When it comes to my turn, I may ask you about future service area, but that's a different topic and a different conversation. But at this point, I'll go to the Board of Commissioners for questions or comments. This is the best stuff there is, by the way.
It is. I've toured. It's fascinating over there.
I've wanted to be on your board since 1995 when Mayor Bascom wouldn't let me. She wanted to be on it herself. So So it's wonderful to be there and to really to see the fascinating work that you do. One of the non-elected members is Peter Ruffier, who, when I was first on the Eugene City Council in 1995, he was the plant manager, Miranda. So he did the job in the early days, and relatively early days of the facility. Commissioner Seneca.
Chair Farr pontificated long enough that something came to me.
That's what I do.
I do have a question. So he mentioned that we send our, what do they call it, that we send to you guys?
Your leachate?
Leachate, yes. And what does happen with that? Because you guys have to have solids at some point you're getting rid of. Because I've also done a tour, and they claim you can drink the water before it leaves, but I didn't see anybody brave enough to do it.
I don't know if they made that claim. It's generally speaking, in many respects, cleaner than the river water, which it goes back to, but I wouldn't just drink the river water either. So the leachate goes into our Glenwood Transfer Facility, and that is actually a permitted industry under our pretreatment program. There's a CFR requirements federally that require and mandate all cities with certain industries that to have permits, and so it's a permitted industry under our pretreatment program, and they have discharge requirements to meet before Lane County does, before it's allowed to go into our system. And the purpose of that really is to our system's set up with physical, chemical, and biological processes, and we don't want certain constituents that in the waste stream that come into the waste stream to disrupt that and kill off our beneficial bacteria. And so they have our Lane County is permitted like 37 other industries that we have in the regional area, and they meet those permit requirements.
And then how much, do you guys measure how much methane you guys produce? Or you sell to Northwest Natural?
Yes, I don't know if I have that number off the top of my head. Do you know, Michelle?
No, I mean, it's MMBTUs, so it's in the, 3,000 to 5,000 MMBTUs a month is what we've been averaging.
That's an easy number to find, but.
Yeah, and I don't know how to translate that to, loaves of bread or, what homes that you heat. It's kind of an abstract number.
I was just curious, what would the gas ban do if Northwest?
So the gas ban wouldn't impact this for a couple of reasons. One, we've set up our contracts that Northwest Natural is obligated to take our gas, so we're not obligated to give it to them in the future if something more lucrative comes along. But that said, this is a renewable source of natural gas, and that's something that gas companies around the country are looking to expand upon. And so it's actually very desirable because of its renewable attributes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further comments or questions? Then just a couple of last quick items from me. I'll see you tomorrow in Springfield. Maybe you all won't be there for the interviews that we're doing right now. My turn is tomorrow. And then I'll see you again on Friday morning. I believe we'll all be there bright and early with wonderful snacks and breakfast. You mentioned the Poplar Farm. And, if you go to the Springfield Library and go into the meeting room, look up at the ceiling. You'll see slats in the ceiling, all made of beautiful, beautiful white wood, which is the poplar from the trees that we grow at NWMC. And you've seen these, but it's not only good for trees and things, but actually it does make pens. The white pen is made of the poplar from our farm. So, and that's one of a kind. There's only one of those. So, Mr. Stouter, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think unless there's any other questions.
I see none, then I'll look for a motion. Vice Chair Trieger.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move approval of the attached board order ratifying the fiscal year 23-24 Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission Regional Wastewater Program Budget and Capital Improvements Program as presented.
I'll second.
Moved by Vice Chair Trieger and seconded by Commissioner Laval. Order 23050904. Discussion to the motion. I'm seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. I'll see you later on this week.
Thank you, Chair and Board.
I'm officially taking my badge off now. Then, Mr. Mokaraisu, we do have an executive session today, but prior to that, we'll move into item 8B, which is announcements from the administration. And I see that we have a guest in the room.
Yes.
Highly anticipated. Highly cheered.
We have our county clerk, Dina Dawson, is here to give you a E7 obviously,
Could
it's
ask the
Tuesday,
candidate.
one week from today.
It's almost you expect a crowd roar.
I know, right?
Through this, right?
We have our I voted stickers. Mine keeps coming off of my jacket, so I have it on my iPad here. Stickers here for those who have voted, and let us know what's going on in elections, Dina.
Awesome. Morning. Happy E-7. I'm really excited to be here today to share Signature Verification 101, an update on our signature verification and curing process. And earlier I shared via email a copy of our signature verification training manual. And I'm proud of this work as a table resource for our election workers that are verifying signatures. This is in addition to training that we take annually. It was provided by the Secretary of State's office. It was led by a forensic signature examiner, which is always very exciting. They're looking at the perspective, or from the perspective of trying to find forgeries and training us on how to find simulated signatures or forgeries. And so we've taken that information and we've coupled it with, I've been verifying signatures for 16 years in multiple states, and so we've coupled that with some of the best practices that I've learned in other states. So I just wanted to share the training manual so that you can take a peek at it. If you ever have any questions about how we've determined that these are the examples we use or why we use these methods, I'm happy to talk that through. We have shared this with the other counties in the state that may not have a manual put together with all of this information. But at a high-level overview of signature verification, when ballots are returned, they are all scanned to the ballot sorter, and the ballot sorter takes an image of the signature on the envelope. That's uploaded to our automatic signature verification software. And the first round of signature verification is done via automatic signature verification, or ASV. We, in the elections office, determine the thresholds for that software program. So prior to each election, we run a couple of hundred ballots through where we know that the signatures are good, and we adjust the threshold on the program to determine what do we want to set that threshold out, what signatures, at what tolerance do we want it to kick out signatures. So currently there are no regulations in law that set this threshold, but in Oregon, there are none. But we set our tolerance to kick out anything that would be questionable. Any of those signatures then go to Tier 1 review by our signature verification team. They look at it with human eyes based on the training they received in this training manual, and they make a determination. If at Tier 1 they determine that this question is still, the signature is still questionable, then they elevate it to Tier 2. Tier 2 are staff that have seasoned election workers that have additional training and have access to additional signatures. So they can go back through the voter's history of signatures and see, oh, this doesn't match the latest record, but this is how they used to sign in the past. So there are 3 reviews that each signature goes through before it is challenged. And at the point that it is challenged, because we've determined that it's a discrepancy, then the voter is sent a letter. And the letter lets the voter cure or resolve the issue, and the voter has until 21 days after the election to cure that. New this year, we've asked voters to help us ensure the cure by providing a copy of acceptable ID. When a signature cure letter comes back, if it does not have acceptable ID attached with it, then it is routed back for signature verification through Tier 2 again, and that's how the person's identity is verified, and they provide sufficient proof that it was them that voted the ballot. If the voter is returning a copy of that acceptable ID, the ID itself, along with the signed affidavit where they swear or affirm that it was them that returned the ballot, provides that sufficient evidence. We've changed the letters to where it is a single form with the letter on the front and the cure form on the back, where in the past it was a voter registration card that was filled out. So this just makes the process more efficient. I've asked Diana to kind of drive a little bit for us, and she has pulled up on our accordion folder. On our landing page, we have 18 separate accordion folders because we have a lot of information to share, but number 9 walks folks through the kind of what the cure process or signature verification process looks like, why we're verifying signatures, what we do if we find a discrepancy. And so right in the middle linked are the form for a missing signature or a discrepant signature. So if after the election, a candidate is reaching out to folks that might have a cure opportunity, and the person says, well, I never got a letter, or I can't find my letter, the forms are available on the website to be printed off, completed, and returned to the office. Also, for the ease of the voter who may not have received their cure letter or might have lost their cure letter, they can take that cure letter and sign it. They can return it via email, fax, in person, in the mail. And we will also take we know not everyone has a fax or a scanner. I don't have one in my home office, believe it or not. So a photograph of the form, as long as the wet signature is readable, we will accept that as well. All in an attempt to make it easier for a voter to be able to cure that signature discrepancy. Or currently in the lead, Dana, can we go to the election dashboard? I think it's just scrolled up a little bit at the top there. Thank you so much. We have more voters. No, we don't. I thought we had more that had failed. I really was just surprised at the number of voters that failed to sign or forgot to sign their envelope. It's a little dark to see there, but I think it's 199 of missing signatures, and it's 211 signature discrepancies. Thank you so much. And at this point, the dashboard is current as of 6 o'clock this morning, I believe. There are, Diana, will you look right below there, the missing signature, the cured. We have 6, yes, thank you so much, and 9 folks that have cured their discrepancy. So that was, as end of day yesterday, any cures that we received in the office, we processed. And I want to say we have like a little bell or something because we're very excited. Like each time we get a cure, we're just like, we have more cures. And so it is an exciting change to the process for us.
Hashtag election nerd.
Yes. I did not wear my hoodie today, but this is a resource for voters to be able to look and see. There might be an opportunity if a person receives a cure letter, does not return ID along with it, and their signature still doesn't match the signature on record, that cure would be rejected. And so those would be recorded here as well. A rejected missing signature cure or rejected signature discrepancy cure, that's exactly what it means. They attempted to cure and that failed. We will not notify that voter a second time, but if the voter contacted our office or used OregonVotes.gov to see the status of their ballot, if they reached out to us and let us know, why is my ballot not counted yet? They could print a new form and provide a sufficient ID, and they would have an attempt to cure second round, but we will not be reaching out to folks that had a failed cure. But that's the revised cure process in a nutshell and how it kind of shows up on those dashboards. Let me make sure that I covered all my little notes here. Oh, I wanted to highlight signature verification and what it is that our signature verifiers are viewing. There's always some concern with the integrity of the verification process and, oh, your staff are rejecting this party's signature or that party's signature. So what I shared with the board this morning and via email is just a copy of what it is that our signature verifiers are seeing. It is the image of the ballot that was taken by the ballot sorter and a blown up version or a magnified version of the signature and the latest signature in the voter registration system. There's some piece information that's associated with it, and it just says this came from this batch, it was found to be good. You know, there's just some identifying information, but nowhere on the screen is party affiliation ever even considered or presented. Now, we can say all day that our team we don't care about party, we care about votes, who's voting. We're completely unbiased in our review, but this helps solidify that for folks that it's not even there to look at. And so I wanted to share that because, again, constituents will come to you and say, we feel like they're throwing out a lot of this party's signatures or that party's. It's helpful for us to have the eyes and ears to say that information isn't even available on the screen to be reviewed. So I just wanted to share that. And we're happy to share that with any of the public that have concerns. If they want to come in, you can watch the live stream. I think we have signature verification going on. I feel like, Diana, I owe you coffee. for doing this. But I think if we were able to look at the live streaming piece of it, I think just back or close out at the top. There you go. I think I purposefully set it to signature verification, and there's no one there doing signature verification right now, but the room that it's focused on right now is the signature review area. And today we were just collecting from the drop box outside of our office and the post office, so we are expecting a couple thousand ballots to come back today. And so those would go through the process and would be verified. You can see some activity in the lower right-hand corner. And unfortunately, when you're viewing the live stream, you don't get the opportunity to choose which room to zoom in on. That will be me as soon as I get back to my office. But you can see that they are processing some ballots, and those green trays right there mean those are ready to be deconstructed or ballots separated from the envelopes. I'm going to just quickly check my notes and make sure that I covered everything there. It's amazing I wrote all this out and didn't even review it, but I wanted to share that deconstruction teams start tomorrow. Deconstruction is the disassembling of mail ballot packets and then moving on those components, the ballot, the envelope. They all move on to various stages through the ballot processing process. Deconstruction teams start tomorrow at 10. Also tomorrow at 10, we will do our second public logic and accuracy test. They will be running the same exact set of test ballots that were created and hand-marked by election staff through the voting system again, and then matching the results up to the expected results that we created. That test will take place immediately before we start scanning or counting ballots. And as always, to see what's happening each day, the tentative ballot processing schedule is available on the election security tab and the live streaming. And so today, this week is going to be a busy week with processing ballots, and Election Day is a week from today. And that is our election update for the day.
So you're saying this is exactly what it'll look like next Tuesday?
No.
No, you're not saying that. Okay.
We start a little later on Election Day because we go much later. So the election deconstruction teams, they used to be referred to as opening boards, but we are rebranding them as deconstruction, and they don't like it. They really they think the name, they think they should be wearing hard hats. But really, the work that they're doing is so critical, and they really are dissecting the ballots. They're monitoring for specific areas. They're looking for things. They're not just opening ballots. So we changed the name to deconstruction because that's what they're doing. I think that I'm zhuzhing it up a little bit, and we're kind of putting the definition around the room so they could feel really good about what it is that they're doing. They're not just opening ballots. But they're starting at 5. And we'll be there until 11 or 12. So that's when you'll see a lot of activity on the screen on Election Day.
Well, you fell short of calling it surgery.
Oh, it's close.
Yeah.
Surgery of ballots, maybe.
Pretty
Thank
darn
you.
close. Anything from the board? Any questions or comments?
We could arrange for them to have hard hats if they would like them. We could say election nerd on them.
I love it. Multiple colors to match your party affiliation. I'm really liking where this is going.
Or no color if you don't have a party.
There you go.
Then, thank you, Ms. Dawson, and Ms. Mokreisky, thank you. Further announcement? Oh, a question from Commissioner Lovell, I'm sorry.
I had a question about that word. What was that word you used? Digi? What was that?
Oh, zhuzh.
Oh, I wanted to make sure I got the spelling right for my notes, but I was just clarifying. But that is some riveting video. In the industry, we used to say that there's 2 ways of catching people's attention. That is with dramatic light or dramatic action. I can help you with the light. The action's going to be up to you, my friend.
No action is still action?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Top left looks like a crowd at an Orioles game late last year. Ooh, and I'm an Orioles fan, but they're top of the league this year. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Dawson. We'll see you. I'll see you not on the 16th, but I will be there on the 17th.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mokreisky. Please.
For sure.
continue.
That's all.
That's everything. Then we'll move into kind of a sandwiched-in item. Items from commissioners. We will likely not come into regular session following our executive session. So do we have any items, announcements, et cetera? This is not agenda team requests yet. Very good. I'll just, an item from me is that I spent yesterday evening in the Bethel School District boardroom. We have our budget committee is meeting right now, and Bethel is moving forward with slight rise in population, so no teacher layoffs this year, unlike most districts in Lane County. Then we'll move along to agenda team requests. Do I have before us any agenda team requests? I Commissioner Laval, I'll look to you first. For head nods on,
Oh, for my items here?
yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to propose an item that we ask the staff for a comprehensive update and an alternative idea of how we can put a modular or a pilot treatment program in place in lieu of waiting for the stabilization center.
Commissioner Buck, we'll
you.
talk about this a little bit.
I was thinking about that since you first proposed it, and if I remember right, in a previous year or two, we did discuss this at some level. It was definitely prior to the two new commissioners coming on this year, on what it would mean to do something smaller in advance of doing the larger project. It's been a long time, and I don't remember the entire conversation at that time, but but the gist of what I got was, we didn't have the financing, but if we did that, it would delay the larger project. And so I would suggest that this be a report back with an update on that from the staff. Because I think if our staff thought they could do it earlier, they would. And they would be presenting that to us as an option right now. But I'm sure that there's some issues with the financing still that we could mesh that, with a report back on if there's an option to do it earlier in a smaller scale, what would that mean? How much would that cost, and what would it impact the larger project?
Let's I'll look to other commissioners first, and I'll come back with the kind of a reiteration of what you said and see how it might bind with what you've already stated, Commissioner. Commissioner Zuniga, excuse me, I'm sorry. Looking doesn't call you.
Yeah, I have two things. If it's been a while, maybe something has changed or there's new models out there, but one concern would be the finances for is it considered temporary or built by piece? So that would be interesting to see a report back on that.
Vice Chair. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I am fully supportive of asking, I guess my request of the requester is that we make it broad enough that staff can bring us what is really happening that we need to know to keep us informed, to keep the project moving forward. So a broad request of just an update on activity around the Behavioral Health Stabilization Center without the specificity of a new proposal of something to be considered. I think the administrator will work with his staff. I have full faith to make sure it's as broad an update as possible, so to include other models that have been explored, either prior to landing on the current direction or that have maybe come to light since that other communities are doing. But I would fully support and really welcome, just broadly speaking, an update on the Stabilization Center, including timing, capital financing, and operating models, because that's a big part of the financial piece. Is we could probably get the capital money to build something. It's really the ongoing program structure that dictates how we finance it, the operation. So I am fully in support and happy to nod my head vigorously to asking for a broad update around the initiative, if that is something that the requester of the assignment would be willing to phrase it in that way.
Then, if you'd like, or I could give you my version of what may.
Please, if I can have a comment, yeah.
You know, we've had a great deal of activity on the Stabilization Center for years now, including tours of potential facilities. We looked at the old Bon Marché building one time, as a matter of fact, and because of kind of dead ends, we continue to look at different ideas for the final Stabilization Center, which is quite a ways away from being funded for its ongoing operation. I do recall that we also had a discussion of what may be alternatives for a Stabilization Center, not to disinclude, to include Youth Stabilization Center, which we've had that discussion as well, separate from the adult. We used to call it a crisis center, but that's really not what it's all about. So see if this would work. A report back, a brief report on as an update on where we are specifically with the funding and operation of the Stabilization Center, which would be just a summary of work in progress, and an update on reports that were made earlier on alternates to a large facility, satellite facilities or smaller geographically dispersed facilities. Just an update on what staff did provide on that. I don't remember the exact date, Ms. Markowski, but I do remember that we did have that discussion. And a number of things are really going into this is how do we bill, for instance, for the services that are provided in either a small stabilization center or a large stabilization center. And I think we have bridges to cross there regarding billing. So
I believe it was last fall. I think it was October that we had our last.
then use that as a start date perhaps for staff. And Commissioner Lovall.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your head nods and your comments. And, you know, I think there's, as Commissioner Seneca said, there could be some possibilities that some opportunities that hadn't arose in the past are maybe coming to play. I think there's a sense of not only opportunity, but a sense of urgency. And maybe an idea that was had before that was rejected, people might be looking around at their community and going, wow, the problem's really getting out of hand. Maybe we should reconsider something we've rejected before. And so my concern is if the stabilization center is going to provide 30 beds, I think we could knock a big hole in that through the entrepreneurial sector or some other opportunity that we didn't think about or dismissed prior. So that's why I want to do that. And I just want a time frame of how important that is. Please forgive me, but I'm one of those people who don't like to talk about things too much. I want to act. And so that's kind of what I'm putting forward.
Absolutely. I understand that. And, you know, what we always temper our action with, of course, and you're recognizing this more and more, is that government doesn't always act with the same rapidity and the same decisiveness that private industry can act with. Because of government can't take some of the risks that private industry is inherent in the action that we take in private industry. So that being said, Ms. Mokraski, when I asked for review of assignments, I'll see how you heard that, okay? Any further agenda team requests? I'm seeing none, then I'll look for a review of assignments. Ms. Mokraski.
So I just have that one, which I heard is a report back, an update on the stabilization center with constraints, current constraints moving forward and other models that have been looked at as well as other. I think we can incorporate all the things that you requested there. It is true that October 18th was the last update that was given to the board, so it has been 6 months, so it's a good time to bring forward an update and talk to the board about this. I'd encourage, particularly for the two new commissioners that weren't here on October 18th, you can go watch that presentation for background on what was talked about there, as well as the commissioners that were there, because if you're like me, you probably forgot what we talked about 6 months ago. So that is that one. The other, because there's a question about the update on the housing and shelter update, our homelessness update that Ms. Budd gives. The next update will be on June 27th. So there was a desire to have some information about kind of the hydraulics of shelter bed space and how that fluctuates and everything. So June 27th will be the next update on that.
Excellent. Any questions or comments on that report?
Sorry, Chair, and I just was messaging with Eve Gray, our director, and actually June 6th. They have a presentation plan to come to the board. So good timing, just about a month away. They're planning on having an update on the stabilization center. So we'll make sure that our staff has seen the comments that the board had today and that report is responsive to the questions that you have.
So you're saying that update's on June 6th, is that what I heard correctly?
That is the plan. That is the planned update. That's what the plan was, yeah. So this is sometimes what happens is, you know, commissioner interests and desires converge with staff plans. So it looks like that's what's happening. And I would just encourage the board here, you know, as we talk particularly about these really big strategic priorities that the board has established, stabilization center, housing and shelter strategies, that it's our job to update you on where we're at and what constraints exist, what challenges we're facing on the stabilization center, certainly funding, both for the construction of the facility and even more so the funding for the ongoing operations of the facility. We need state participation. That's been a challenge because the legislature and the governor have been really focused in this session on emergency shelter and less so on the behavioral health side of things, so we just have not seen funding flow yet into those areas. We also need local partners. We need our healthcare and insurance partners. We need our cities, particularly in Eugene and Springfield, to participate in all of this. So you all need to understand where those constraints are and help us bring down some of those barriers. And you all also need to give us direction as the policy body on what your goals and expectations are as it relates to this stabilization facility in particular. So I think it'll be a great update that you'll get, and hopefully a really good conversation just 4 weeks from now.
And I'll view that as a pretty rapid response to an agenda team request.
Yeah, June 6, awesome.
Very good. Then we'll move down the agenda, and I'll mention that we are down next week, but next week, a week from today, is May 16th, Election Day. We are down that day. We'll be back in regular session on May 30th at 9 a.m. We'll be down the following week, so June 6th is only one meeting away, actually, from the meeting that we're having today. And we're down.
Oh, we're down on the 30th.
Yeah, then we meet on the following week, which is the 23rd. So that being said, we will not meet again until after the election in regular session, unless we come out into perform other business after executive session, which is not really very likely. So that being said, everybody, if you've not voted, do vote. As long as you vote the way I would vote. If you're not going to vote the way I would vote, don't vote, whatever you do. But I'm not going to tell you how I'm going to vote. So with that, then we'll be entering into executive session. When the gavel sounds, we'll move into executive session. We will reconvene at 5 minutes till 11 in the Board of County Commissioners conference room. We will not be coming back out into regular session unless something in executive session deems that required. With that, then, the Board of County Commissioners will meet in executive session to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. This executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.6602D, which allows the Board of Commissioners to meet in executive session for the purposes listed. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. We reserve the right to come back out into public session should the need arise.